Welcome back to another thought-provoking episode of Global Insights. I'm your host, Sarah Jennings, and today we're diving deep into the fascinating and often turbulent political landscape of West African states, guided by the compelling arguments from political theorist John Dunn. We'll explore the complex questions of responsibility and political agency in these countries that have historically navigated through colonial legacies and challenging governance systems. So, why should we care about political responsibility? Well, when things go wrong in governance, it's critical to identify who holds the accountability.
With me today, I have Dr. Amara Kojo, a political science expert specializing in African politics. Welcome, Amara. Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here.
To kick things off, let's look at Dunn's core argument. He presents a critical perspective, stating that we often fall into the trap of blaming structures or colonial legacies for contemporary political issues in West Africa. But Dunn suggests that we also need to consider how individual leaders and citizens shape the destinies of their nations.
Right, Sarah. Dunn is particularly interested in how various colonial paths have influenced the political trajectories of countries after achieving independence. For instance, he highlights three Guineas, one under Sékou Touré, who embraced a revolutionary style, another following a more entrepreneurial model of governance, and a third that leaned towards conservative, stable order.
That's a fascinating trio of examples, Amara. So what does this tell us about the post-colonial experience in West Africa?
It shows the diversity of outcomes. Even with similar colonial influences, the political choices made by leaders can lead to entirely different paths for their countries. History matters, yes, but it does not dictate a single outcome.
Absolutely. Moving beyond these historical pathways, Dunn takes a critical look at how political patronage operates in these nations. Patronage, in simple terms, refers to the system where leaders provide resources or benefits to friends or loyalists to maintain their power.
And this ties back to their integration into the world economy, where states act as intermediaries, extracting resources from external sources and redistributing them. But this creates a layer of complexity. Leaders become dependent on external rents, and their ability to respond effectively to their constituencies can diminish.
Exactly. When resources are plentiful, leaders might foster loyalty through tangible benefits, ensuring political stability. But in resource-scarce regions, like some parts of Senegal, how do they manage to keep coalitions intact?
Great question. In those scenarios, leaders often rely more on personal connections, charisma, and social acumen. This patronage system favors authoritarian tendencies, where individuals controlling financial flows can dominate the political landscape.
This takes us to another critical point in Dunn's discourse. He outlines the inherent vulnerabilities in these political systems. He argues that West African states are particularly fragile and susceptible to ruin due to their historical context.
Yes, Dunn emphasizes that the states share a vulnerability that makes them easy targets for poor leadership. With political structures inherited from colonial regimes, new rulers often navigate through pre-existing patriarchal and authoritarian frameworks, rather than developing robust democratic processes.
And that's crucial. It leads to the question, why have these states often failed to generate participatory and resilient political systems? Dunn argues this stems not just from the structures themselves, but from the leadership choices made within them.
As part of this discussion, he critically examines the theme of responsibility. Dunn challenges the narrative that places blame solely on historical forces or structural issues, insisting on the accountability of individual rulers. For instance, he brings up General Idi Amin's regime in Uganda, demonstrating how choices made by leaders can lead to significant human suffering.
Right, and it's vital to recognize that while structures are important, they don't absolve individuals of moral responsibility. Leaders must be held accountable for their actions, especially in how they choose to use their authority.
And Dunn doesn't just stop at focusing on leaders. He calls for an understanding of responsibility among foreign observers as well. Outside parties must reflect on their role in African politics and acknowledge the limits of their influence.
This raises the importance of political agency. Dunn introduces the concept of political agency as the capacity of individuals to make meaningful choices that can affect change. But he also notes that this doesn't negate the existence of structures that constrain these choices.
Exactly, Sarah. It's about walking the fine line between recognizing the structural constraints while empowering individuals to act within those limitations. He argues that understanding historical counterfactuals, imagining what could have been different, can provide insights into alternative political trajectories.
For example, if colonial policies had been differently structured, or if different decisions had been made by emerging leaders, the political landscape today could look vastly different. This method of thinking is invaluable in evaluating current political realities.
Let's dig deeper into that idea. What if, for instance, the leaders had prioritized public engagement and participatory governance? How might that have led to a different outcome in terms of political stability and societal well-being?
It's an interesting exercise in imagination, isn't it? Dunn argues that thinking critically about what could have happened can change the way we analyze current political situations. Recognizing that history is not set in stone opens the door for constructive discussions about the future.
Absolutely. It emphasizes the idea that people aren't mere subjects of larger forces. They are actors with the power to influence events profoundly. That means there's a significant role for citizens to demand better accountability from their leaders.
To wrap up our exploration, let's summarize Dunn's key insights about West African states. Firstly, while they share common structural legacies, the paths they have taken since independence vary widely. Secondly, the patronage politics and authoritarian structures can create vulnerabilities while also opening spaces for accountability and responsiveness.
And finally, Dunn reinforces that we must view both rulers and citizens as agents of change, possessing the power to make different choices. Recognizing the openness of history and our roles within it is imperative for understanding contemporary political dynamics.
Thank you for the rich discussion today, Amara. If our listeners enjoyed this episode and are intrigued by the complexities of African politics, we encourage you to subscribe and share this podcast with colleagues or students exploring similar themes.
It's been a pleasure to be part of this dialogue, Sarah. Let's keep questioning and looking for ways to foster responsibility and agency in political systems worldwide.
Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, consider how power dynamics shape the world around you and how understanding them can contribute to making a difference.